Hi everyone, I hope you're okay. My name is Jamie Brown. I run the Twitter account Daily Hotspur, and yeah, I kind of wanted to bring my stuff across over to YouTube and do what I was doing on Twitter on this platform. So, kind of for today's video, I've got some stories from the last few days, some of the best stories and some of the most relevant stories that I think. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of talk through them and show you them, and yeah, we'll discuss them. So, as you can see, the first story comes from ESPN. It's regarding Gareth Bale's comments about returning to Real Madrid. Of course, he came out with that interview whilst he was away on international duty, saying that his plan was to go back to Real Madrid once his one-year loan deal at Spurs had finished. And Gareth Bale's agents obviously come out and kind of clarified what he meant. And I think that, yeah, for me, they were taken completely out of context. I think people looked at them on face value. And at the end of the day, as it was says here, it was intended as a statement of fact rather than a statement of intent. Currently Gareth Bale does have the option to return to Spurs next season. Spurs have that option to take up if they so wish to. At the moment, nothing's been decided. And as he's still an employee of Real Madrid, that's what he has to say. He was asked, does he want his future cleared up by the Euros? Of course, the answer is yes. He can't say he doesn't want to go back to Real Madrid. So it was obviously a very difficult situation. And as always, his comments, I feel as though they were completely taken out of context. For me, I think Gareth Bale will probably be a Spurs player next year. I think Spurs will take up that option. I don't see him going back to Real Madrid. And yeah, I think people made a lot out of those comments, took them well out of context. And yeah, I think it's just nice to hear that Bale's agents come out and kind of cleared them up. So for me, there's nothing to worry about with these comments. I do think we'll see Gareth Bale as a Spurs player next season. So yeah, that was obviously nice to hear him clear them up. Now, another player who's on loan at Spurs at the moment and potentially we might see again next season is a report from the Daily Mail, and it is regarding Carlos Vinicius. Of course, Carlos Vinicius, he is on loan from SL Benfica. Spurs have the option to sign him for £36 million, which was agreed as part of the loan deal last summer. However, the club, of course, are unwilling to pay that sort of fee, which is, I think, is totally fair enough. And they're only willing to pay £17 million. Now, for me, Carlos Vinicius, I think he's not played a lot of football for Spurs, and I think there's a reason for that. I don't think he's a guy you can trust. I'm not sure he's the right person to come and fill in for Harry Kane when we need someone to kind of give him a rest. We saw in the Europa League matches, he played a handful of them. But I think when it got to the latter stages, you saw that Harry Kane was being brought back into the side. And that, for me, is an issue because I don't think you can trust Carlos Vinicius. Of course, he's turned 26 on Thursday. So for me, even at £70 million, I'm not sure that's the right kind of deal. I would be looking at other options. For me, Danny Ings is definitely the one that I'd like to see Spurs go for. However, I know that that's a very difficult deal to get done. I think there's going to be real competition for that one. I think Man City are very strongly linked. I think he'll fancy himself playing Champions League football. So that's obviously one that's maybe out the window. £17 million, I probably wouldn't go for that. I would look for someone else. But I think still at £17 million, if he is the one last option, then maybe you would go for that. And maybe that's a fairly decent deal. But yeah, Spurs wanting to get a cheaper deal than what that had been agreed in the summer, and I think that's totally fair enough. I don't think he's proven that he's a £36 million player. £17 million maybe slightly more reasonable. Now, the next situation is regarding the goalkeeper situation at Spurs, and that is that Hugo Lloris, as you can see here, his future is becoming increasingly uncertain with Paris Saint-Germain interested. Of course, Lloris now is 33 years old, so you assume that that is a situation that Spurs will probably look at in the summer, and he's got 1 year left in his contract, which is probably a big thing. So maybe whether he's unwilling to kind of renew at Spurs. So you maybe think that Spurs would look to replace him and get in some sort of fee. Of course, I think as well, at 33 years old, as I said, I think that's a situation that Spurs will maybe look to kind of refresh the keeper. As you can see, Nick Pope is one of the options that Spurs have been looking at. However, Burnley have put a £30 million price tag on him and probably wanting in excess of that. And at 28 years old, I think, yes, he's Premier League experienced, but I think that when you're looking at a sort of fee for like that for a goalkeeper, especially when you know that Spurs aren't going to have a great deal to spend in the summer, I think that's fair enough that you look at other options. And I think there are better options out there. So as you can see, Spurs recruitment staff have started the process of identifying potential replacements for captain, with Nick Pope top of the list. Of course, with the £30 million fee. And then you see the constraints of the COVID pandemic. They might look for cheaper alternatives if the Nick Pope move fails. So the first one that they've looked at is I think he's one of the Belgium internationals, Koen Casteels. He currently plays for Wolfsburg, 28 years old, as you can see. So he's an option. There is also Lille goalkeeper Mike Maigen, who I think is a guy who worked under some of the coaching staff, the likes of João Sacramento at Lille, of course, and they'll obviously know a lot about him. I think the goalkeeper coach at Spurs also worked with him, so they know each other very well. So I'm sure that that's the situation that Spurs will know very well about this keeper. And yeah, and there you go again. He's entering the final year of his contract in the summer, so could be available on sort of a good deal. So I think that's maybe one that I actually think that we'll see him come to the door. I think Maigen will be the guy that Spurs will look for. As you can see, it looks like it'll be a very good deal. He's only 25. He's known by the coaching staff at Spurs, so I think he'll be the keeper that comes in rather than Nick Pope or Koen Casteels. So yeah, that's the situation regarding the goalkeeper. And the next story, it comes from Yannick Vestergaard, of course, at Southampton. I think he's also in the final year of his contract in the summer as well. So another deal that potentially Spurs could look to exploit. He's Premier League proven. I think he's a very, very good central defender. I think that he would certainly add a lot to Spurs. And of course, Spurs will want a central defender in the summer. And I think that this would be a very good option. Now, he's been speaking about Spurs' interest. He was directly asked about Spurs' interest. He said, I can only say that, of course, it's always a pat on the back with stories of interest from other big clubs. However, of course, he goes on to say that he's still a Southampton player. Of course, they've got a lot of important games coming up, so he's not going to speak about it too much. But yeah, Yannick Vestergaard, a guy that's linked with Spurs. So yeah, an interesting situation there. I think that this would be a very good deal for Spurs if we can try and get this done. Of course, you can see here a link by the Mirror, which is, I think, at the start of the month or the middle of the month. So yeah, that is the situation regarding Yannick Vestergaard. So there's another report from Sky Sports, and they are talking about where Spurs might look to in the summer. Of course, the number one options will be centre-back and in central midfield, which is an odd one. I mean, potentially if you're looking to move someone on like Harry Winks, then that's understandable. Moussa Sissoko, maybe another one. But central defence is obviously the main part of where they will be planning for. And Jose Mourinho still involved in the planning. And of course, that's sensible for me. Depends how we finish the season. I think that's when you kind of decide Jose Mourinho's future. I think if you look at the sort of interims that have been touted around now, I think it's best that we stick with Jose Mourinho. And of course, there's something that can be achieved this season still. We're in the race to the top four. We've got a cup final coming up. So for me, stick by Jose Mourinho. I think as fans, we've got to get around him and support him. We're not going to change the season now. So for me, yes, let's stick with Jose Mourinho, have him part of planning for the summer. If we get into that top four, if we win that trophy, then for me, I think that he probably would have deserved to stay on another year at Spurs. So okay, thank you for watching my first video. I'm sorry if it is a bit awkward. Of course, it is very different talking to the camera. I'm used to doing kind of as a guest on Last One Spurs. So hosting is obviously very different. But if you enjoyed it, please let me know via Twitter or kind of in the comment section. I kind of want to do this stuff live as well so that I can interact with you guys whilst I'm talking, and hopefully you have enjoyed this. Obviously interact with it in all the usual ways that YouTube is and kind of that lot usually asked for. Thank you for watching, and come on you Spurs.